guys, welcome back to the channel, man. We're talking about the top 3 baits in the month of May, and I got a bonus bait, so it's actually going to be 4. You guys stay tuned. This is a great month of the year to fish. One of my favorites, one of the months that I have the utmost confidence when I hit a body of water. I love this time of the year. It's just one of those things that I can't wait to get out there. We're going to break it down for you, give you top 3 baits, actually with a bonus. You guys stay tuned. So May fishing, here in Oklahoma and Arkansas and Missouri and Texas, it is a shad spawn month. And, anywhere that you're south or whatever that line is that shad don't, there's shad all the way up in Green Bay. So you got shad spawn really in a big part of the country. It really, affects a lot of us. And not only just shad, but there's herring, there's a lot of other bait fish that spawn. When that water temperature gets like 68 to 72, 70, 71 is the magic number. I've actually seen a shad spawn in 66 degree water. Those gizzard shad, they'll spawn in a lot colder water. So what to look for, hey, like Edwin, what do I do? How do I know a shad spawn is going on? There's a couple things you want to look for. If you've got little minnows, little bait fish following your bait in, whether it's a crankbait, a spinnerbait, a vibrating jig, if you've got something following it in, that is some sort of spawn going on. If you're running down the lake and you happen to see quite a few birds lining the bank, that could mean a shad spawn is going on. If you just see bait fish in general, sometimes I've not seen birds. You'll see them up there on the bank, just running down the bank, just lines of, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 shad running right down the bank. That's a shad spawn. So when you start to see some of that stuff, and you need to look for it when that water hits 67, 68 degrees, 70 is the magic number. You need to be looking for it. And it lasts longer on a cloudy day. It lasts longer in stained water. If you've got really clear water, like you got at Table Rock or Beaver or the lower end of Grand or out at Hartwell or any of those lakes that's really clear, it can get over really quick. When that sun gets up, man, it starts to die. But if I've got clouds, if I've got stained water, it'll go on through the day. So a lot of times you'll see me start, in that cleaner water and then work up a lake in that dirtier water, as the day progresses, as the light gets brighter. So keep those things in mind also. Now, as far as baits, no better bait than a spinnerbait. This one right here is called Shad Spawn. It's my favorite color for years and years and years. This was like the skirt I always built. It's got silver and black and a little bit of white in it. This is the compact half-ounce version. I chose this color or this size, this blade combination for when the water's cleaner, for when you've got sunnier conditions. I went with the smaller profiles here. Now the standard version with the tandem willow, Colorado willow, that's a great bait if you're fishing in more stained water. Like if you're in the upper end of Grand, the upper end of Table Rock, just stained water. When I say stained water, like 12 inches or less, that 12 to 16, 18 inches. When I get more than that, that's when I go with this compact version with the double willows. Just works better. But this to me is like my all-time best bait. I will tie it on. I'll put that Lowrance Ghost trolling motor on high, and I will cover a lot of water. The things that you're looking for, let's talk about that a little bit. I kind of passed that over. Shad spawn on a hard surface. It could be anything. I've seen it on clay banks. You're like, that's a hard surface. I've seen it on riprap. I've seen it on bluffs. I've seen it on styrofoam floats. I've seen it on tire reefs. I've seen it on logs. I've seen it on stumps. They will spawn on any hard surface. So nothing is really out of the equation. So you have to look at it all. So like when I'm looking back at it and I'm looking at it, say from the big aerial 40,000 foot view, think about the water temperature. Like, am I on the lower end of that shad spawn, that 66, 67, 68, 69, or am I on the tail end of it? And that kind of dictates where I'm going to look for it first. So think about where a bass spawns. early in the year, like just right outside of where they may be spawning. You know, I had an event down on Conroe, Bassmaster Classic a few years back, and I literally caught all those bass those first 2 days, and I was leading the tournament going into the final day, had big sacks, and it was going really, really good. Then the wheels kind of fell off the bus the final day. I found a bed fish. I spent 2.5 hours. Well, that's a whole nother story. And I lost a bunch. But they were all like in the first 30, 45 minutes all on seawalls, you know, and they were like, it was just right at the mouths of spawning pockets, you know, because it was an early shad spawn. There's still people catching them sight fishing in that event. So it was a really early shad spawn for me, and it was over quick. But they were all in the mouths of those smaller pockets. You know, as the water temperature warms, as all that, I will just move out the lake. You'll eventually catch them out there on the bluff walls, main lake bluff walls. That shad spawn will happen. So think about where you're at with it. Think about where those bass were when they were spawning and how far along they could be. You know, I know a bass could swim from the back of the pocket to the front of the pocket, but that's where I try to find the most amount of fish. You know, when you're looking at docks, I like it. Docks, same thing, out in front of the mouth of a pocket, big marina dock. It doesn't matter the depth. It can be over 40 foot. It can be over 5 foot. But I love the older styrofoam. You know, they're getting away from that because of, you know, it breaks up and it litters our lake. So now a lot of things are the black floats. But that older styrofoam docks, those are the best. Tire reefs can be really good. Any of that stuff. So just think about when you're looking, think about how far along they are, the mouths and pockets all the way out to the main river, out to the main channel. It can happen anywhere in between. And that's going to be a great bait because I'll catch them on this. The shad like it. They'll follow it. I'm always looking at my bait when I'm taking it out of the water, seeing if any of the shad are following it. It's just a good bait for me. Use the tandem willow in stained water. Use the double willow in clear water. The color Shad Spawn, 1/2 ounce is what I always use. I throw that on 20-pound fluorocarbon, a 7-to-1 medium heavy, you know, my spinnerbait rod, a 6/8-to-1 gear ratio reel. I keep it, you know, just right out of sight, just in that top 12 inches of water. Could be 8 inches of water if it's stained, you know, could be 16, 18 inches of water. You know, if it's a little clear, but you know, that's where you want to keep it and just bury that retrieve. Flutter those blades, just bury that retrieve, then kill it. You will get some bites on that. All right, the next bait that I would choose to go do the shad spawn on would be a vibrating jig. I've got a 3/8 ounce white slobber knocker. This is going to be my choice when I've got more stained water. 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 inches of water visibility. I would go to that color that they call herring if it gets clearer than that, and it's just a little bit more translucent skirt, really good color. I'll try to put an example of it up on the screen. It won't be one of the ones we give away. That is one thing. I'm going to send all these baits away to one of you guys that is a subscriber in next month's video, and we will pick a winner at the end of this video from last month that'll get those baits from last month. But a 3/8 ounce slobber knocker. I've really been liking the new paddling tail. This is the paddling power stinger. It's new for the year. It's actually a swim bait, a little swim bait. But what I like about it on my slobber knocker is it just has a little more kick. So I chose this white color for when I'm in stained water. This is going to give me a little more kick as I'm reeling it in. It works really, really well. You can see how with that honeycomb technology, it's just a very it's got lots of action to that bait. I mean, it's just a really, really cool bait. It works really well on the back of that slobber knocker, paired up with it perfectly. Just a neat little bait. That color there, Sight Flash. It's white on the top, kind of a see-through chrome sparkle on the belly. It's just one of my favorite colors for that bait. I will go with just a regular power stinger in a little more cleaner water, or if I'm trying to reel it a little faster. If I get, you know, like this 3/8, what the advantage is with the 3/8 and that paddle tail, I can keep it up in the water column at a little slower speed. You know, if I was to put the straight tail power stinger on there, it's going to drop in the water just a little bit, just a few inches at the same speed. And at times that makes all the difference. But I like this paddle tail in stained water situations. I can reel it a little slower, keep it up in the water column, keep it in the strike zone a little bit longer. Again, 20-pound test. Put that on your favorite spinnerbait rod. I've been throwing this now on the new Johnny Moore 7'2" Johnny Moore Signature Series. Not the red rod, but the black rod. the medium action. It's got a really good parabolic bend. I just feel like I'm catching a few more fish, landing a few more fish on that rod. It's been working really, really well. Okay, the third bait for the shad spawn time of the year, you've got to have a swim jig tied on. Why? It's really weedless. I can throw this way up underneath dock floats. I can throw it through laydowns, through grass, through, it's just weedless. It comes through everything, and it's a lot more subtle than, say, the vibrating jig or the spinner bait. It's just a different sound. When you get into that shad spawn and everybody's throwing their, spinner baits and the vibrating jigs, it's just one more bait that I always have tied on in my boat. I got the 1/4 ounce here. It's something I can keep up in the water column. If I'm needing to speed it up, the water's a little warmer. If I'm needing to trigger a bite a little quicker, I'll go with that 3/8 or that 1/2 ounce. But I'm pairing it right here with the, the Shape 108. We talked about it last month in last month's video. It is just a great little trailer. It's got great kickers on it for the trailer. I trimmed that skirt just a little bit to where it's just right at the end of the hook. Slide that puppy on there, skip it back up underneath those docks, those floats, back in those laydowns through that grass, and just pump your rod. I'm constantly pumping and reeling. I do put that on an 8-3-1, something I can take up slack with really quick. I throw it on 20-pound fluorocarbon. Most of the time, if I'm in and around grass, I will switch over to 50-pound braid. But again, 8-3-1 gear ratio reel. I use I don't use the finesse swim jig hook unless it's like really clear. That's just a whole different situation. We're not even talking about that here. I use the heavy wire jig. Just that's what I use, 20-pound test. I don't have to worry about stretching that hook out. It works really well. So those are 3 baits in and around May that, man, Lake Eufaula, Alabama, Lake Eufaula, Oklahoma. The list goes through my head of all the different places I have caught them on these baits in the shad spawn. It doesn't matter where you're at and where you go. These represent shad really well. It's just a matter of finding where it's happening at in that lake and capitalizing in that short window that you're given. So when you get done with the shad spawn, what do you go do? You got fish transitioning offshore. You still have fish up in and around guarding fry around the beds. And that brings me to my next bait. It's one of the few months out of the year that I throw this bait, but it really shines in the month of May. When you're struggling getting a bite in May, a lot of times I feel like we're beneath the fish. The fish are up in the water column. They're up either feeding on shad, they're up in the water column guarding their fry. They'll push those fry out to the ends of a dock, dock poles out to the end of a laydown. They're just constantly pushing their fry out to a little bit deeper water, out to the outside edge. That bass is eventually going to want to go out and get offshore like he does, but there's no better time of the year than to throw a popping bait. And this is the Berkeley Bullet Pop. I've got 3 different sizes here. I got the Ghost Minnow, I got the MF Bluegill, and I've got the Baby Bass. All great colors. The MF Bluegill is probably my favorite. This is the 60, the 70, the 80. And I just choose the size to the color and the water conditions. I'm going to throw this bigger one if I've got dirtier water, if I've got cloudier conditions, if I got more ripple on the water. That's when I throw the 80. It's just a great bait that makes a lot of commotion. They will flat eat at this time of the year. You just if they're not committing to it, you can't get any bites on it, go down to the 70. Next best bait, just a little bit more subtle. Then it gets really clear. Maybe the bait fish they're feeding on, just clear situations. That's when I go with this little bitty one. And there's just times of the year that this is one of them. They will key in on that bait, and it is such an awesome bite. I had an event one time on Fort Gibson Lake, and I promise you I caught 33-pounders in the month of May, throwing that popper just down the bank around any cover. They were just annihilating it, and they wouldn't touch a walking like a jaywalker or a Zara spook. They wouldn't touch a buzzbait. The month of May is when they get on this bait, and of all the other topwaters, they won't bite them. Like you get 1 bite a day, you'll get 20 on this. It's just a really, really good bait. A couple things that you need to know about throwing it. It's one of the times I will throw mono. There's nothing wrong with putting 12-pound mono just all the way through your rod and reel to throw these baits on. It'll work really well. If you're not going to throw mono, put a 40 or 50 pound braid with a mono leader. You can't throw it to straight braid because when you pop it, that braid will get back here and your front hook will capture it. So you've got to have some sort of leader, a stiffer leader, like a monofilament leader, to keep that from happening. The other thing about it is figure out how they want it. There's days that they want that bait and you just, and you make that big bubble and you just sit it. And it's a sound deal to me is why they eat it. Then there's days that you just start walking that thing a lot quicker, you know, to start popping it back and forth. Vary those retrieves with this bait to figure out which one they want. I'm going to have them rigged on an 8:3-to-1 gear ratio reel. I use a 6.9 medium Johnny Moore's Platinum rod. That Johnny Moore's Signature Series also will work. That 6.8 medium. Both those rods are really, really good. Throw these down any of those banks where they spawn, any of those overhanging trees. You know, the month of May, the bluegill spawn also starts, and that's also why this bait shines. You know, God created these creatures so they all kind of feed each other. Well, bass gets done spawning, man, he can go prey on all those bluegill that have been causing him, you know, havoc back when he was spawning, and there's no better bait than a popper during that bluegill spawn. So that's why I've got some of these chosen, you know, these colors. That MF bluegill works really well. Just great baits. You know, this one being more transparent, it's going to obviously shine on those sunnier, clear water situations. So those are my baits for May. By no means are these the only baits that'll catch them. You know, we talked a little bit about some of that offshore bite. Still a great time of the year to throw that swinghead jig. Great time of the year to throw that Carolina rig, mix in that football jig. You know, some crankbaits are starting to come into play, some offshore bites with a crankbait. A shaky head's always going to be a great bait the month of May if you got some fish up there around that bluegill spawn, some fish that are still hanging around those beds. You know, a green pumpkin swim jig would be another bait, you know, in and around that bluegill spawn. And maybe we just need to do a video on talking about the bluegill spawn. That might not be a bad idea, some baits to choose for that. But those are my baits for May, mainly talking around that shad spawn, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me get to the winner. All right, we went randomly through there. I got a little deal that I can click and make sure you guys are subscribers. I just appreciate it. It helps the channel a bunch. But every month, every now and then, we pick one that's not a subscriber. So if you're against subscribing, I understand. It doesn't mean I won't choose you. All right, so I screenshotted that. Let me get to my photos. I had a picture of my grandson that was distracting me, and now I can't find my photo. There it is. Okay. All right, it says Pterodon 4204. Went out last week and got 2 nice bass, but would love to up my game. That's why I love your videos. Keep the fantastic work, man. Pterodon 4204. Thanks for the comment, buddy. I need you to send me an email to my website. You just go to edwinevers.com. There's a little portion there that you can send an email and send me your address, and my wife will get these out to you ASAP once we get this. Not these baits, Pterodon. You're going to get last month's baits right there because you left that comment on last month's. That was the gilly, and we had the Shape 108. We had a couple frogs in there, and we had a swinghead jig. Cool tackle pack you're going to get for leaving that comment. Just helps the channel, guys, by leaving those comments. Appreciate it a bunch. With that said, man, good fishing. The month of May, I think of topwaters a lot. If I'm not in and around the shad spawn, I'm throwing a topwater. It's just a great time of year to throw a topwater. Good luck to you in your fishing.